hear it next Sunday. But today, thank you, Linnea. Linnea Taylor comes from a long line of teachers, preachers, and missionaries. But the particular occupation that instilled an early interest in social, class, and racial reconciliation was her father's occupation, cultural anthropology. Through his connections with the Wycliffe Bible translators, she attended several junior camp, junior missionary trainings under the Summer Institute of Linguistics. And these experiences began her lifelong interest in cross-cultural communication. While obtaining a degree in sociology at Westmont College, Linnea studied abroad in 7 countries for 1 semester, a focal point for her being a three-week course of study in Jerusalem at the American Institute for Holy Land Studies. Feeling strongly that no Christian education is complete without an understanding of the larger secular society, Linnea transferred to UC Santa Barbara, where she finished studies for a degree in sociology. During and after Linnea's years of raising 3 children, she continued to pursue her interests in class and racial healing through studies in communications at Moorpark College, training programs at Cal State Northridge, and completion of the mediator training course through Cal State University graduate program in negotiation, conflict resolution, and peace building. Through Azusa Pacific University, Linnea received her secondary education teaching credential and her master's degree in education. Through her years teaching high school English at Hueneme High School, she taught all the required curricula within the context of cross-cultural communications, drawing heavily from seminars and training workshops in understanding and teaching students from a culture of poverty. It was from those sources and her teaching experiences that she gained an appreciation for recognizing the hidden rules of the middle class and teaching those from marginalized populations to navigate the culture of the dominant class in the United States. Robina's not on with us, I don't think, today. Happy Mother's Day, Robina. But sometime last year, Robina said to me she had this deep appreciation for Linnea. I don't think Linnea knows that. And for those of us who know Robina, if Robina says that she appreciates you, because she is not a flatterer, that's the last thing that Robina is. She's a simple, basic truth teller. So when Robina told me that she has this appreciation for Linnea, I said, that's gangster. That's okay. So everybody, our own beloved freedom fighter, Linnea Taylor. Welcome.
Thank
Linnea
you.
is in the house.
Okay. I was going to text you and tell you you didn't have to read all that stuff.
We did.
Yeah. Michael, I kept telling him, yeah, I'll come up with a title when I know what I'm saying here. And I never did that, but he had a few ideas. So you want to slap one on there, Michael?
I don't know if I'm supposed to have a printed one, but if I did, I screwed up. But just basically, La Dia de la Madres in the Ice Age.
Okay, little play on words there. Yes. I'm so, so grateful to see you all. I love you all so much. Because I'm not as nervous as I would be ordinarily. I haven't timed this, so just cut me off if I go too long. And there's very little that I can really offer you, probably, in this group that you don't already understand. In fact, I've kind of been praying that the Holy One will just entice me to throw up my notes and just continue on with some word of wonder to enrich every one of you according to what you might need at this particular time. But before we pray, I do want to make a disclaimer. Actually, I don't need to because Matt Lowe already gave us all kinds of definitions of mothering, and so did that. The quote, the reading. And I will say, if I use any evangelical traditional words like God or Lord and pronouns like he and him, it's not because I perceive the Creator as a man. I also don't perceive him, see there, as genderless deity, meaning neither male nor female with a pronoun he signifying the whole of humankind, but rather I perceive him as gender full, containing the fullness of all things, including gender, with both the binary male-female designations and everything in between. The full spectrum, I guess. So let's just pray. Father God, thank you. Thank you for these people that have become such a beautiful and necessary part of our lives. I pray that you will fill each one here with your Holy Spirit and that you will guide the words that come out of my mouth. Help me to be completely in tune to you. And thank you. I praise you because you are beautiful, 100% good. Thank you. Ashe and Amen. Okay, so I had to crack up when I was asked to contribute my reflections on Mother's Day. After all, I was one of those Scroogey ingrates who hated Mother's Day Sundays so much that I would play hooky from church that one day of the year. When I went, I kept my attitude to myself. No need to denigrate those women who loved the accolades given yearly by our pastor of 14 years in Thousand Oaks. Hoping not to reveal my identity as a wet blanket, I dutifully clapped for each prize of a rose for each mother, grandmother, or great-grandmother for having the most offspring. But the yearly sermons were all the same, glorifying the saintly role of motherhood with a Norman Rockwell perspective, honoring the nurturing yet tough parent who made us all the stellar humans we turned out to be, or so the story went. Proverbs 31 was frequently cited on Mother's Day, and this biblical passage is a Hebrew wisdom poem, actually an acrostic with consecutive letters of the Hebrew alphabet naming characteristics of wisdom as characterized by this woman in Proverbs 31. The traits mentioned include her strength, generosity, sewing and spinning for clothes, for her kids and her servants, farming, mentoring her children, teaching her children, tireless household management, up before dawn and never lets her candle go out at night. She has skill in finance and even wise navigation in commercial society. And well, I used to feel pretty inadequate next to that description, as if it were some sort of a list that I needed to follow. Later, it occurred to me that Proverbs 31 maybe was used against women in patriarchal societies. I figured this to be another example of plucking scripture out of context and imposing it on others as a universal standard or another list of rules in order to exert control. Not that this was the intent of the author. The thing was, back then in my Thousand Oaks church, I'd find myself looking around the congregation and in my mind's eye at the many women I knew, myself included, who had no confidence in their own mothering and struggled with feelings of guilt I knew daughters who still suffered from their mom's negative messages, feelings of abandonment, or even abuse. I mean, I felt a dissonance watching roses given out and Hallmark stories being told about mothering when there are those who found their lives crushed through an inability to even have any children, and those who suffer from the death of a child. However, now that I'm 74, I have been a single mom, for one thing. And there's that. Talk about a Proverbs woman. And I also have come to know many women who have exemplified that example, that vision throughout their lives. I think of Pastor Diane. I think of Rosie. Just to name randomly a few, most of you here are probably Pastor David's mom. From what I've gathered from all her children, and many of you here, I just know what kinds of mothers you are, and I know that you've way exceeded that description. Um, part of this got taken out. I'm talking next about the countless moms that I had, moms of my students at Wainimi High School, who exuded the noble character, and this is the one of the words that the writer keeps using is the nobility of this mom or this woman. For many of those moms, I could probably check every quality on that list. The only exceptions from those verses for these moms might be regarding those pursuits that require wealth and land ownership in the first place to turn a profit or invest. Not really applicable to these women because it takes money to make money, right? Needless to say, this discriminating economic system prohibits lavish, fine linen clothing and furnishings with excess for profit on the side, at least not when working someone's fields all day. But I did find that nobility in these women. And I will say that the first time I heard Reverend David Moore's Mother's Day sermon, maybe in 2020, 2021, all my grumpiness and cynical tude about Mother's Day just kind of burst into fairy dust. It was just oh so different because, as our Rosie says, he was keeping it real. And the reality is that Black and Latino mothers in this country clearly make this Proverbs woman look like a tough, often impossible for kidnapped Africans and their descendants. That ever-shifting definition of race by the government has demoted immigrants to an even lower position than before with this government-imposed dehumanizing stratification and assignment of worthiness. I didn't want to talk about me in these reflections. I wanted to talk about Black and brown mothers in the current hellscape that is the US. And I should interject that there was a turning point in my life that helped me know our Creator, which in turn inspired me to pursue a greater understanding of the experiences of His children in cultures other than mine. And just a note here, when we at the Jesus Collective were telling our life stories, I didn't get to the most recent 30 years of my life. I guess my life, I had too many lives, I guess you could say. So it's a story worth telling, this turning point, but maybe some other time. Suffice it to say that at sometime after 1997, this ever-patient deity of ours bestowed on me an almost overnight delivery from an about 8-year nightmare of alcohol addiction. Suddenly, at that point, I found myself free from that prison. free from 2 abusive marriages, and 4 years of abject poverty. Finally landing my dream job as a high school English teacher and eventually meeting a man who became my best friend and later my husband and soulmate. That is Michael Johnston. I felt like my life was just beginning at 47. During this restoration, I found that new understandings were washing over me in torrents. This period of time after being abruptly healed from addiction was also a time of profuse, bountiful learning. Like when I read the Bible passages, I thought I knew. When I read the passages that I thought I knew, they produced layer after layer of meanings. Michael and I would have long discussions about the twisted narratives that we had both felt oppressed by in evangelical circles. This was a time when I deconstructed all that toxic theology and came to see the difference between people's biased interpretations of the Bible passages and the Creator Himself. I came to have conversations with God that turned me around on many issues and dropped the veil from my eyes on who He is. This new spirituality came with a powerful need to know and stand with non-white people. I recall one night thinking about my sons and wondering if they would ever find themselves in trouble. I imagined each one of them in jail, and I couldn't imagine either one of them surviving. I broke out into a cold sweat of terror and felt God showing me a Black mother like me lying in her bed, fearing for her sons. Of course, hers were exponentially more likely to get ensnared in the selective enforcement web than my sons were. I had long known that, but this particular night, I knew it. I experienced it. My empathy and longing were intensified that night and many nights after when I'd have the same experience, forming a solid and sure identification with God's love for Black lives. For a while, I hovered in limbo again with not necessarily a plan, acutely aware that I didn't even have access to Black people beyond my few former African American students I kept in contact with on social media. I looked at history and current events, which all revealed the impossibility of this country ever finding racial healing. And I was perpetually amused at the foolish incongruity of the persistent reality of racial hatred and separation on one hand, and my strong belief that God was still motivating and urging some of us to cry out for change on the other hand. The apparent futility of trying to cross racial lines still nagged at me continually. Like when I recalled my years as the sponsor of the Mecha Club at Hueneme High School, for example, I had tried to bring these Latino activists together with the Black Student Union during a period of high tensions and violence between the two groups. My efforts were unsuccessful, but at least I learned about a few of the reasons for the reluctance of each group to work together. On my retirement in 2012, I continued my contact and friendship with several former students, mostly on social media, a couple dozen Latino students, and a handful of African American students. So, to me, it was glaringly simple. Who could deny that racial justice and conflict were the worst problems the U.S. had at that time? We're talking about in the early 2000s. And two, non-believers as well as religious people notice the morals that are showcased by religious institutions, and the hypocrisy is glaring. Three, it would behoove religious institutions, therefore, to model this key component of God's design, which is seen everywhere as variety within unity. And four, it must be the church which takes the lead, or justice will never happen. Five, the church should stand in opposition to all the other systems in the U.S. that perpetuate separation and toxic racial hatred. Believing those five statements, Michael and I joined every group we could within our evangelical Presbyterian church. We hope to generate some interest in taking a look at why our church was so white and how that limited spiritual vitality for all of us. For me, every single time I brought the subject up of race, there was no response except maybe some polite nods and shaking or nodding of the head. But there was no actual verbal response, just vague smiles. And if people even cared, they figured it wasn't their job, or it was mainly just hopeless. I could share so many stories about our efforts to bring other ethnicities into contact with our all-white congregation. When a social justice group was formed in that church, we tried to merge with a congregation of recent Mexican immigrants. Needless to say, much of that didn't work out well because of our members' inability to realize that their own values may not be universal. Our church imposed so many requirements on the Mexican congregation, like don't use our dishes, don't be too loud, get insurance, and even that the Mexican pastor should go to a seminary to learn Reformed theology. After a prolonged battle with the church stance against LGBTQ people, we left that church and landed at Ventura Vineyard, now Liminal. And there we found like-minded people. A few of you may know our own Bob Harper and Margie and several others who formed a task group called Mosaic to expose some of the issues of racism in the church and how white privilege functions to maintain a poisonous status quo. Again, so many stories, so little time. And what I really wanted to talk with you about is, yes, Mother's Day, a glimpse of what non-white mothers are going through currently. U.S. Blacks, we know, have never really been free in America. They have never known safety here. Through them, we've learned about the talk, a conversation the non-white parents must have with their children to help them survive and move around in this racist society. How excruciatingly difficult the talk must be. I can only imagine walking that tightrope between inadequately preparing children for situations on one hand and inadvertently instilling a debilitating trauma with too much detail for their innocence to handle on the other hand. There are masses of white people who think opportunity is equal in this country and deny that there is any injustice at all. After George Floyd's murder, many white people began to realize that we'd been lied to by the powers that be. I've often mused about what Black people were thinking when suddenly tens of thousands of white people showed up protesting in support of Black Lives Matter. And here we are in 2026, and I'm musing about what Black people are thinking about the now ready-to-resist masses of Americans in support of Latino immigrants, documented and otherwise. I worry that the newfound numbers at anti-ICE rallies will eventually disappear, as they seem to have after the George Floyd and the Black Lives Matter protests. And now Latino parents have to have the talk with their children. Not that they haven't always needed to, but the necessity of having that talk has previously depended largely on how much their economic status protected them. The wealthy and powerful have always fostered suspicion, which created hatred between the races in order to keep their power. It's important to note that the wealthy and powerful control governments who enact laws and policies that fluctuate according to which non-white group they feel is the threat to their high status, which they're determined not to share. These artificial and discriminating delineations of race, which were started by our founding fathers, permeate white society at all economic levels. So my thoughts on this Mother's Day are about this most recent widespread out in the open brutality by U.S. government on immigrants. Again, I can't even begin to imagine the fear and trauma of Latino mothers today as they hourly face the possibility that they or someone they love could be arrested, beaten, imprisoned, deported. I'd like to mention a couple cultural traits that are common in our Latino community, since they may not be apparent to those of us from backgrounds of relative privilege and safety. Also, because these traits, awesome as they are, can increase the vulnerability to the trauma within the entire community. The first is that even before this regime began attacking immigrants, the English-speaking children in Latino families have often had to assume a role usually shouldered by parents in order to navigate U.S. systems. However, ICE has flipped the parent as protector dynamic even more comprehensively because children of undocumented parents are now forced to undertake even more parental functions in order to keep their parents, from leaving the house, whether they're documented or not. We all know that many documented people are being targeted. This is not to mention taking on an inordinate amount of fear and anxiety over their parents' danger of being abducted. We're seeing children trying to stay in school and grown children trying to keep their jobs in order to take on parental tasks like going to the laundromat, shopping, grocery shopping, healthcare visits, and countless other errands. An array of research has shown negative health repercussions typical of people who are under siege for a long time. This increase began in this admin's first term in 2016 and has shown a dramatic surge in health problems for our Latino neighbors here in Southern California and in many urban areas nationwide this past year, with the ramping up of paramilitary forces and countless detention centers. Here's an example. One that's close to me comes from my friend Cassandra, mother of two small children, whose mom is undocumented. For several months, she's been having relentless gastrointestinal symptoms and finally broke down due to all her parent care on top of her children and work. She said, "My mom is the backbone of our family. My mom is very important to me, and my heart would shatter if she was ever taken." She's constantly watching social media while working and taking care of the kids for reports of where in Oxnard ICE has been cited, as well as text from me if I hear from my VC Defensa signal chat about cars headed towards her mother's neighborhood or her daughter's school. All this while doing shopping and laundromat duties for her mother's household as well as for her own. An undocumented former student text about a great job offer, which she was afraid to take because of ICE agents having been operating intensely several streets away from her home. If Marisol is taken, her mother won't have income or all the care she needs for her diabetes and rheumatoid arthritis. And if her mother is taken, she probably wouldn't survive. The second factor that makes this situation uniquely horrendous for Latinos is a cultural characteristic of families that is generally different from traditional Anglo families. And this is a very general observation, that Latino families count more of their relatives as intimate family members than perhaps the dominant culture in the US. Due to individualism and white culture, the nuclear family became the model, being composed of just the parents and their children. Consequently, the nuclear family sometimes tends to become detached from its extended relatives, because generally Latino families tend to be closer to both extended relatives as well as others in their communities and neighborhoods. They often say they have other mothers or other cousins, etc. This is a wonderful thing. I've always been an admirer, except that now that kind of family structure is broadening the circle of loved ones that they feel a responsibility for and have an intense anxiety over. And this multiplies the trauma that many are undergoing. Another example, over the years, Marisol has repeatedly referred to people in her extended family in primary family terms. We have been beside her and her biological sisters through many celebrations and many tragic events. In this family, their whole community of relatives and friends experienced the emotions as if the event were for someone in their immediate nuclear family. I was always introduced to people in this large group as my auntie, uncle, or cousin. Janet and Liz would say, "This is my cousin." Not really, but yeah. And then finally, issues of isolation. From these stories, we can read between the lines to see that this current danger for Latino mothers may be a lot like the days of COVID, or maybe worse. Cassie's mom has few visitors from family or otherwise due to fear of going out. This kind of isolation causes untold mental health issues. Marisol's mother is also far more isolated than she has ever been. Even having a baby can be fraught with dangers beyond normal. An undocumented father was afraid to drive to the hospital to see his wife, Laura, and his new baby. His own father had just been detained a few weeks before. Laura's stress level was so intense that her body stopped producing enough oxytocin, critical for labor, breastfeeding, and protection from postpartum depression. Mostly alone at the hospital, she was also mostly alone when she went home, since most of her relatives were afraid to come to their house. This isolation intensified her fears and depression. I'm afraid that one day they will get me and I will leave the baby alone. Another example of adult children running interference for their parents is the case of our friend Antonia's adult daughter begging her not to go to court to fight an unfair traffic ticket. She says, "Mom, it's not safe to be in court. Just pay the fine." So Antonia now has to somehow come up with an almost $300 fine that she could have likely beat in court. I'm going to stop there. And we have put together a sheet if anyone is wondering about ways that they can help. If anyone has felt like they've just been too busy to become involved in this, we put together a sheet of different kinds of opportunities and phone numbers for 805 and DocuFund, which is more northern Santa Barbara County and Central Coast, whereas the one that Michael and I are in is VC Defensa, which is Oxnard and Ventura. And we're finding that it's pretty flexible. You can pretty much do whatever. You can make up your own group. It's not all what they usually publicize on social media is the confrontations with ICE. And so it's not the car chases and the big shout outs, but there are healthcare professionals against ICE who meet. Um, there are artists against ICE who have meetings together. There are countless events, several per week, and opportunities to work in pantries and do food distribution and so on. Um, that is something. If anyone is interested, you can direct message me or Michael or call. But if anybody doesn't have access to a computer to look up on, say, Instagram or Facebook, look these groups up, please let us know personally. We can always snail mail or we can send you documents like family planning for people who are worried that they're just going to poof, disappear. What happens to the kids? What's the plan? You know, getting that stuff together seems pretty monumental for a lot of families right now. So there are so many things that can be done. Do we want to put that? Do we want to do a screen share for that, or do I want to put it
Linnea,
in?
I,
Yes,
what you sent me, I put in chat earlier.
gotcha. Okay.
Uh,
So
the list, did you get the list of specific bulleted things people could do?
yes.
Did you not see it in chat? If it's not there, I can try again,
Okay,
but
let me
I
check.
thought it was in there. If you go to chat and scroll,
At the beginning, right?
yeah, it was early on, and I don't see it.
No, I
It might,
didn't see it.
it might have got lost.
I
I
think
Okay.
need
it
to
must
send
have.
it again. Yeah.
Okay.
I
Because,
think it disappears during the breakout room.
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
is
it
that
might.
right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it shifts.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Let me, how do I do this?
Okay.
I
Um,
could I could also put it in the group chat. I mean the group thread on Facebook, but I know a lot of people aren't in that.
You want to just read it to them real quickly through the bullets?
Um,
well,
sure. Do
isn't
we
it
have
kind
time?
of, well, we won't get a chance to ask you
Okay. Let's do
questions,
some.
so I will paste it again.
Okay.
All right. Um, yeah, I'll paste it again. Meanwhile, um,
Okay.
Ana Rosa is, what'd she say, in New York? She was going to help Shella um, ask you questions. um,
I don't She was going to try if she could get on.
yeah, so Shella's,
Okay.
take it away, Shella.
Linnea, my goodness. What a life. And I can remember back um, when my kids were in high school and stuff, how they wished that some of their white friends would stand up and say things. But the stories are just, there's so many stories in our life, even with being a mother, with mothering, because you mentioned the difficulties and the hardships of that. And even with that, there's so many, even my own mother, there's so many stories that brings a person to do whatever it is they did. And and mostly, if they could have, they would have done better. And I just really believe that if they could have, they would have. Um, what you have said, Linnea, is there's so much to it. So I'm sure I'm not going to hold you up with saying things, but I see some of what you're saying, just families being afraid and people standing at their doors looking outside and all the mental health support that's going to be needed even whenever this ends. And I know that the same exact thing would have been so helpful way back with Black women and Black people.
Yeah.
So you've said so much, and you are an ally. You're standing up and you're speaking it out. God bless you. God bless Michael. God bless everyone that's doing that, because this is exactly what, because like for people like me and maybe some others, you can just do a one-on-one maybe, and maybe there's a greater chance for other things. But thank you so much for what you're doing. And I definitely want to open the floor for everyone to be able to ask you questions. And
In response to what you said, one thing that I'd like white people to know, Michael and I are continually shocked at how shocked people of color are when we're nice to them. We get this all the time. A white person has never been nice to us. What's going on? And so smile. White people need to just be more friendly. And in the grocery store, you see something happening, that's the time to speak up.
Well,
But he-
Can I
Linnea,
add?
if
And
I
it's
may,
not about
it's not
it's not
just
about
being
being a white
nice.
savior.
Yeah, that's it. What was that? Was that Michael?
Yeah, I said it's not about being a white savior. That's not the thing.
That's the thing.
no,
Linnea, you and Michael, your authenticity comes through. I mean, it's more than being nice. It's, nice is just a way of making the world a little smoother. But if you really want to connect with people, it's got to go beyond being nice. And my knowledge of, and a lot of us here know this about you and Michael, it's we don't feel constantly challenged and interrogated by your presence, as though what Toni Morrison calls the white gaze, where we don't feel like we're under the white gaze uh, when we are in your presence, and that's healing. That's yeah.
If I may, I would like to say you're doers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You just do. You do it out of love. It's so, to say even genuine doesn't cut it. It's beyond. It is so beyond. I'm in my mind remembering all the times that throughout my beloved Ephraim's care here, you guys would show up, whether it was you, Nea, just to show and share your genuine, like I said, is beyond genuine, your love. And Brother Michael, oh my God. I mean, their words just do not suffice. You're just doers.
Mm-hmm.
You're not asking for anything in return. You're not expecting it. There's none of that. It's just human to human love.
Mm.
It's God. It is God. And you just express that by doing. And yeah, just
We're rich. I mean, we
Yeah.
are so rich from, it's our pleasure. Sounds
Mm.
trite, but it is. It is our wealth.
Thank you both so much for that. I know in the area where I'm living right now, Orchid, Santa Maria,
Mhm.
there's just for me being here, it's so hard to approach. They're just not approachable.
No, they're not.
Thank you,
I
Clint.
worked
I
there.
lived
Oh,
there.
I'm gonna call on you next, Clint, because
Yeah, I worked there. Sheila, I worked right there on the border of Santa
Stella.
Maria and Orchid, and I see a lot of MAGA stickers, and you know what, and a lot of false narrative getting spoken to me every day about what's going on in the world, and it's that white uh cognitive dissonance. They're completely into the fox because it's comfortable there. And they keep telling me I'm somebody that supplies oil. And they're telling me how it's going to be better in 2 weeks. And I keep telling them, bro, turn off your TV. You know, let me say this. Linnea and Michael, are the dynamic duo of doing. You know, and I'm not a religious person. I'm a spiritual person because spirituality is an action. And you guys have the action that shows that's Christ-like. You know what? I don't like Christianity, but I love Christ. And Christ is somebody who said, "Watch what I do and then do it." He didn't say, "Hey, just watch what I did, now you're good." No, I'm going to show you how to do this. You take these. I'm going to take 1 foot to the left. You take 1 foot to the left. It's just that simple. You know, chop wood, carry water, be kind to others. You know, and my first, as a white person, I need to say this. God, it sucks. Right now sucks.
Yeah.
Not really sucks. It's, how about this? I am not afraid to be around people of color and disinherited people. God, come here. I'm your people. You're my people. We're our people. It sucks being around white people right now.
I'll
Because I'm
say.
gonna tell you, they talk a different way around white people, and I know that because I'm white, and they come up to me like I'm some sort of a good yuck yuck yuck. No, man, I'm sorry, I'm better educated than that. And you know what? My first real, I was privileged to grow up in a white household that wasn't racist. I could hear some little echoes of it in some of the stupidity that may have came from aunts and uncles. But in my household, that wasn't how it was. My brother was the first interracial marriage within my little one side of the family. Now all of my family's interracial. Thank God for that. But you know, that older generation that was still in this weird thought process of humanity, those people are dangerous.
Yeah.
You know, and I remember going to prison for the first time and having somebody, Ken Foster, I know Pastor Moore, you know Ken Foster. Ken Foster, you know, from Oxnard. He let me know. He goes, "Hey, you know, when we go to prison, we can't talk." And I said, "What?" He goes, "Yeah, because blacks and whites can't hang together." I said, I'm not white. I'm a Sereno." And he's all, "Oh, you're gonna have a lot of fun there. You can't talk to me still. And the whites are gonna hate you too." And sure enough, they did. I was one
Mm-hmm.
of them, a race traitor.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even know about white supremacy like that. I thought that shit was in the 50s. I didn't know it was still around. Like, seriously, because I had that white blinders on
Mm-hmm.
that says, "Hey man, that's the past." No, it's not. And I ended up meeting more Nazis in the last 20 years who live right in the where you're from, Linnea. That area. I know I
Yeah.
know the skinhead dogs that just got disbanded, and then you have the damn Pierpont skinheads.
Yeah.
They are all over that area. White supremacy is deep in Ventura. So when I hear about you and Michael, God bless you both. You know what? That's what white people need. They need to be able to see other white people saying, "No, no, it's real, and you need to come this way." Because I'm sorry, this country needs it right now. We need to quit, take off those blinders. Thank you so much for doing that.
Thank you.
right on, Clint.
You, Clint. One of the hangups, I think, in white thinking is, well, God is in control. so we could throw up our hands and wait for him to fix it. Or, Jesus is coming back pretty soon. And this is in prophecy, right? Uh, this was prophesied that this would happen. So, we're not going to throw a wrench in the work. We're not going to get in God's way, and it just shows a lack of understanding of the bottom line of Scripture.
And Christianity
Clint,
being so huge in what all of the stuff that they're doing. But what is that Christianity? I don't see it. Like out here, there's churches all over, but I don't see people approaching me like Jesus or just being willing to talk. Some of them are just, I don't know.
Historically, if you really want to think about this, this isn't much different than when Constantine converted to Catholicism. I'm sorry, he took over a religion to utilize as mass control of the population. MAGA has hijacked Christianity. I should say the Heritage Foundation seen an opportunity in when the civil rights movement happened and it was no longer popular to be a racist, they converted it to being religious. Now it's Christianity. And so unfortunately, they invested in a lot of news networks that co-signed that.
Yes.
And so the masses have been fed what they believe to be news when it in reality is just it's a bunch of propaganda.
Yeah.
Brigetta, I see your hand.
Well, I want to say thank you very, very, very much. Yeah, I really appreciated your talk. And this is a question for you and Michael and Clint, is when you encounter somebody, let's call them a Fox News watcher, what have you found to be an effective way to engage with them?
First things first.
Or is there one?
I got one. There is.
I do this a lot on purpose online in social media. And I often will ask a question and say, I try to affirm them in a way by saying something like, I'm sure that you like to see both sides of the truth. Have you tried looking at blah, blah, blah? Sometimes I'll say something like, I think your algorithm is misleading you. You might try checking, fact checking or, just something, just dropping little nuggets of truth wherever I can, which many people feel is just a waste of time, but I don't think so. Not when God's in the picture, anyway. Go ahead, Michael.
Just a quick part of my answer. Contrary to how I feel when I engage these people, contrary to that feeling, I really do try to be polite and not argue and I try to listen to them. And I think it kind of works. I don't know. I've had a bad week with ice this week. So, actually it's a good week. It's a good week. This week, you guys remember, oh gosh, I'm going to be real quick, Linnea.
I'm fine.
December, January, when I had just the one-on-one with 5 ICE guys in the jail.
Yep.
So this week, the jail has just been ICE central.
Yeah.
And this week I was the first one in to the jail in one of the kidnappings. And as soon as I cleared the door, not the nice guy I told you about, but the mean leader. In fact, he has a name now. We call him Timu. He's authentic and cheap shit. That's what. So anyway, as soon as I cleared the door, he pointed at me and said, "I remember you." And I thought, thank God. You know what? Because he remembered me, and he he stopped. He had started to go with the pepper spray. We stay back from him, but he remembered me and then he just calmed down. That's all.
You know, one of the things that's been very beneficial for me is that I'm a I'm in recovery, so my interactions at work with everybody, no matter what re political party they're with, is always genuine and trustworthy. So no matter what my political beliefs, people know that I'm a trustworthy person with integrity. They trust me. People will not want other people to work on their car, even though I have no mechanical real skills. They trust me. So in that moment, I get real with them. I calm down. I said, look, do you trust me? And if they say yes, then let me tell you something. This comes from somebody who is in contact with the people who supply the oil, and they're panicking right now. They're personally telling me that's why our prices are raising. Don't believe what you're seeing on the news. And I don't say which news. I say just don't believe what you're seeing on the news
Mhm.
because they're not sharing the truth with you.
Mm.
And I'm telling you this as a friend so that you understand what's really going on.
That's good.
And you know what? If I say Fox News, they'll get defensive. If I just say news,
Okay.
by saying, hey, what you're hearing, and I have a personal story to be able to relate to them so they understand that. And I've also been able to do that about the ICE situation for people who are so far separated from any interactions with ICE and think it's all a bunch of bullshit. I let them know I interact with people who have been harassed by ICE. I know people who have been arrested who are American citizens and who have been ran off the road because they simply were following and recording to keep somebody accountable. They weren't doing anything extra. They weren't trying to run them off the road. And there's video proof that this took
Yeah.
place.
All the time.
Yes. So if you wonder if people are feeling a little extreme, maybe they're affected a little more than you, but please don't discount it because some people are affected more than others. My son happens to be half Mexican. You know what? And the last thing you would even want to worry about is him getting pulled over for any stupid reason, but specifically for how he looks. You know what I mean? So, and people are getting pulled over simply based on looks, and that needs to stop. You know, when we start communicating with one another, with people, and stop, like, you know what? Like, I'm sorry, because I feel real strongly sometimes when I see MAGA stuff. Like, I want to slap them. You know what I mean? And so there's some that are I feel maybe, hey, whatever. But there's other people in between that are just followers, that are just ignorant and
Right.
need to be educated. There's nothing wrong with being ignorant. I was once ignorant and didn't know better, but once you learn, you got to do better and not keep it to yourself. That's what recovery taught me. So if you happen to come across a white person talking ignorantly, educate the shit out of them. Do so. That's love. Love is keeping people real and keeping them honest.
Thank you, everybody, for your um, contributions. Thank you particularly to Linnea for um, taking the time and to prepare and to invest your love and your energy in all of us. We are all better for knowing you and for hearing from you today.
Thank you.
So thank you so much. Thank you, Frashella, for facilitating. Thank you, everybody, for everything that you've done. And we're going to go ahead and have communion.
All right. Come.
We'll It'll be led by Clint today.
So, you know, I know last week I did the origins of the word communion and everything like this, but this week, with it being Mother's Day, I was especially thinking of my mom. And you know, one of my mom's biggest things was this. When anytime a guest was over at the house, whether it be family or one of my friends, it was always customary to ask if they've eaten and what would they like to drink. You know, that was how you show love. Was are you hungry? Have you eaten? And you share. You share what you have. with them. And then you know, and that was, and I grew up like that. And I'm so grateful I did grow up like that, because I understood the importance of that interaction when you sit with somebody and you share, you know, what you have to eat and drink, and it becomes a community bond, and you build a relationship with one another. And so today, as we're gathered together here, we're doing just that. And happy Mother's Day to all you moms out there. And like I said, you have become my surrogate moms. You know, my mom's up in heaven, keeping it busy up there, cooking for everybody up there. You know what I mean? Hey, and right here, I got my surrogate moms who love on me and remind me to be a good boy. So with that, so with that being said, go ahead and grab what you have to drink and eat, and let's have communion. Amen.
When is doubt good? It's good to doubt unverified news reports. It's good to doubt gossip. It's good to doubt a man's guilt before he has been fairly tried and all the evidence is in. Doubt occurs when we do not have enough information to convince us. The house is burning. I see no flames, nor do I smell smoke. Look at the sky on a cloudy day and declare, I doubt it's going to rain. Doubts come and go. Sometimes we may even doubt God's love and care for us. Romans 8:38 tells us, nothing in all creation will be able to separate us from God's love. And Romans 3:24 and 25 says, and in his gracious kindness, God declares us not guilty.
Well, I love this. Love you. I'm, you know, we've gotten kind of long here, but I mean, it's just been our time together has lengthened over the past few months unintentionally. And you know, I'm not really so much apologizing for it as much as just recognizing that I'm aware um, that this is something that's happening, because it's not just me that's making it happen. I have my own. I know I have a role in it, but I'm trying.
We're just enjoying each other, and it's okay.
Yeah.
You can always sign off if you don't want to stay. Well,
Yeah,
we're
yeah.
loving it.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that voice at the end.
How about
Yeah,
that?
that was
Who was that? Sounded like some celebrity, or who was
I
that?
know. Good
Our own
spot.
Was it? Who was that?
Thanks, Naomi.
Thank you all. Thank you all.
We don't even have to talk. We can just sit here and gaze at each other.
I know. It's so good to see Dan. How are you doing?
Yeah, it is.
So good to see you. What a wonderful surprise. Yay.
Dan and I, we got together weekly for 4 decades. So it feels right for Dan to be on here, huh?
Yeah.
It's just so healing for me to see you all. So healing. I love you, love you, love you.
Yeah. Love you back.
Respect you, honor you. You inspire me. You keep me sane.
Yeah.
One of the best things when we had our liminal conference, one of the best things for me personally was getting to know and love Dan. Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Thank you, Michael. I feel the same, brother.
Thanks. Yeah.
And David's on here without Leslie. I felt like last week we had a better check in because Leslie was on.
I have to go for Mother's Day. But love you all. Great to see you.
Yes.
Hey to
Yes,
everyone.
keep going.
Love you.
God bless you. Love you.
Enjoy.
Good time.
Bye bye. I got to go too, but this is
All
Cheers.
right.
Mother's Day.
Happy Mother's Day,
Yeah.
Brigitta.
and all of
Yeah.
you too.
All the
Enjoy.
moms.
Yeah.
All the moms.
Thank you,
Yes.
Linnea. It was so beautiful.
Thank you, Dan.
Proud of you. Grateful
Me
for you.
too.
Inspired by you.
Thank you all.
Yeah. Thank you, Sissy. Sissy